Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, as hopefully you all know, and today we're down here in the shop, and this video is going to be an exclusive for my supporters at Patreon. And what I'm going to do today is give you a look at some of my revolvers. Now, because you're all patrons, I know you're familiar with all of the different guns that I show on the channel. And surprisingly, the most popular videos I actually have are for a SIG P290 9mm pocket pistol, and of all things for the High Point 45 ACP carbine. Those by far get the most views, which I find amazing. But also by far my most loyal fans are the ones who show up for the Cap and Ball Revolver videos. So today, as a Patreon exclusive, I thought I would give you a look at all of my Cap and Ball revolvers. So in no particular order, I'll be dragging them all out and I'll show you what I've got. And that's something I've never done before. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll start off with what is probably my most unusual revolver. This is my Ruger Old Army Buntline. So this is a 45 caliber Cap and Ball revolver. It's a standard Ruger Old Army that I went to a gunsmithing school in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. Golly, 2001. That's how long ago this was. And built this. So it's got a 14-inch octagon barrel. And other than that, it's pretty well standard. Got Eagle True Ivory grips. And it just shoots like a machine. You know, these are very well built. Well, the next two guns are my Star revolvers. This is the single action 44 caliber. And this was the third most popular handgun of the Civil War, behind Colts and then Remingtons. So it's actually a pretty fun gun to shoot, though the originals had some real chain fire problems. But it's got a pretty decent balance. It's got a long reach to get up to the hammer, but not bad. It's a gun that I enjoy. This gun is one you don't see very often. This is a Star double action. And you don't see them very often because they actually don't work very well. and this one is no exception. It can be pretty cranky, and that's why there's no video dedicated just to this. The next group of guns I want to show you are Confederate guns from the Civil War. So this one you've probably seen a lot of lately. This is my LeMat that's been defarbed by Lodgewood Manufacturing. And this is among the most unusual guns of the Civil War. So it always generates a lot of interest. Next is the Griswold and Gunnison, which is a brass framed, basically Colt Navy replica. This is a pretty popular Confederate gun from the Civil War. And you know, Confederate guns can be fun to collect. One of my absolute favorite Confederate pistols is the Danson Brothers. And this is kind of a cross between a Dragoon, an Army, and a Navy. And it's actually a very good handling 44 caliber Cap and Ball revolver. And I like this gun a lot. Of all the Confederate guns, this one is my favorite. But running a very close second is the Spiller and Burr. And this is basically a brass framed copy of the Whitney revolver from up north. And as such, it's excellent. It's a 36 caliber. Has a lot of features that Remington then copied. And in a way, I think it's a better gun than the Remington. And in fact, if I could find one of these in actual Whitney configuration with a steel frame, I think that would be great. If you've got small hands, you know, women, younger people, men with small hands. This gun is fantastic. It's better than picking up a Remington because a lot of the 44 caliber frames are just bored 36 to make Remington Navy, so they're big heavy guns, heavier than they should be. This is probably the smallest, lightest, nicest 36 with a solid frame. The 1862 Colt Navy 36 is also a smaller frame gun that's great for people with smaller hands too, but this one, just a very neat gun. So those are the Confederate guns. Well, the next group of guns to look at are the Remington handguns. So we've got a pair of these Remington New Model Armies. These are Pietas, and they do not accept Johnson & Dow conical bullets. You can get the Lee conicals in here, but they actually hit right there on the plunger itself. So the Lee conicals have a more rounded ogive and they work, but these are not very conical friendly as they come. But I have a pair of those. This is a gun I made called the Remington Bulldog, which is based on a full-size New Model Army, and a lot of you I think have seen the videos for these. So this is actually a pretty sweet little gun. And the final Remington is this guy, a gun I call the Ultimate Remington, and it's got a cartridge conversion cylinder on it. I first made this in 1990, I guess, 89 or 90. It's an Army San Marcos. I made it for a Gun World article, and it was called the Remington Kit Gun at the time, as a camping gun. So you can see it's pretty highly modified. And this eventually was copied by the manufacturers in their 5.5-inch barreled models that you can now get as a factory gun. So it just goes to show that good ideas end up getting spread around. And the last Remington to look at is my Remington revolving carbine. And this is 44 caliber. It's made by Uberti. It accepts any kind of conical. It's got enough room. And this is quite a bit of fun. I've actually used this as a rifle in cowboy action competitions by having spare cylinders on a belt pouch, just like Clint Eastwood and Pale Rider. But it's not really SAS legal. I had to get special permission from the match director to use it in the matches I used it in. But it let me do everything but shotgun with a muzzle loader in those matches. So it was quite a bit of fun. So those are all the Remingtons. Well, we'll take a look at Colts now, and we'll go from smallest to biggest. This is my Uberti Model 1849 31 caliber pocket revolver. They make this one without the loading lever, which in a gun this size, I think the loading levers are a joke. You really can't get a grip on them anyway, so I load this one on an external loader. These are fun little guns. So that's my smallest Colt replica. This is my Piet-made Paterson replica. This was Colt's first pistol. He went out of business making these. It's kind of got an interesting action. You see, it's got a hidden trigger that only pops down when you actually cock the gun. So these were 5-shot, 36 caliber revolvers made in the 1830s, and they kind of revolutionized things. I mean, the Texas Rangers used these to great effect. Next in the line are the 1851 Navies, also 36 caliber revolvers. This was my first, well actually my second. My first one has long fallen apart. My first one was a brass frame gun. This is the gun that I got to replace it. I've had this gun, God, I don't know, 30 years anyway, maybe 40, close to 40 I guess. This is a Dixie Gun Works imported gun. It's made by Army San Paulo. They're not in business anymore. It's got a lot of crappy features on it, I have to say. The grips are way too thick. The hammer, Army San Paulo's Navy hammers were just ugly things, very stubby, wrong geometry. I replaced this many years ago with a Piet hammer, and I've never felt bad about that. It works fine. Now the gun shoots very well. So it's been in the collection for a long time. This is my Piet 1851 Navy 36 caliber. And if you've seen my videos on modifying navies for reliability, you saw me totally work this over and rework the grips. And this is just an excellent shooting gun. And last but not least, for my traditional American 1851 navies is this Uberti model. And you saw me fitting this thing with a dovetailed sight in an earlier video. Also 36 caliber, and like all the American navies, it has the brass backstrap and trigger guard. So, very pretty gun. For at least the last decade, my go-to navies have been this pair of this pair of Uberti London models. And they're called the London models because they have the steel trigger guard and backstrap. They're 36 caliber. They've got the best grip geometry, which is very much like a Colt Model P, better than their brass frame guns. And they are just incredible guns to shoot. So, like I say, I've been using these for a long time as my main navies. And the last 36 to look at is this Piet 1862 Navy revolver. And the 1861 Navy, the 62 was the police, is part of Colt's new line that came out with the 1860 Army, and it's got the streamlined barrel and loading lever. I really like this gun except for one thing. It's got an 8-inch barrel and it should have a 7.5-inch barrel. And I don't know why Piet didn't just make it right. I've been pretty close to sawing off that extra half-inch of barrel and bringing it down to the right size, and I may still do that. But it's a very pretty gun. Feels great in the hand. This is also a London model. Got the steel backstrap and trigger guard. And the 1861 Navy was reputedly Colonel Colt's favorite gun. So that brings us to my collection of 44 caliber Colt revolvers, and we'll start off with a revolver that never existed, which is a 44 caliber 1851 Navy. They only made these in 36 caliber. They didn't really make them in 44 caliber, but modern replica makers have bumped them up, and they're a lot of fun to shoot. I mean, if you like the Navy configuration, but you prefer having a heavier hitting handgun, these are excellent. This one is an Army San Marcos gun that I've had since probably 1997, so about 20 years. And then this gun is a Piet, but I took the Piet grip assembly off of it because I hate that Piet tail, and I actually put an Army San Marcos grip frame on it. So it's got a very similar feel and balance to this gun. So anyway, those are pure fantasy guns. Well, these guns are my 44 caliber 1860 Army revolvers. These are perhaps my favorite cap and ball 6 guns. I love navies, but I like these even better. So this one's in a Uberti, and you just saw me shooting this in the paper cartridge video. I've had this one for about 20 years, I guess, and it's still running strong. It's an excellent gun. So, and then this is a newer Piet model. Probably only had this one for 5 years or so. Also an excellent gun. Shoots beautifully. I wanted to have one of each just for display and comparison purposes, so there they are. My favorite cap and ball 6 guns. And then the last 1860 Army I've got, this is my 1860 Army snub nose. And I put this together after testing a commercially made version of one of these a couple of years ago. And it was so much fun that I decided I had to have one. So I just cut the barrel off and put a sight on it. This was another Army San Marcos gun, and this used to be a 5.5-inch barreled gun that I built 25 years ago, called the Colt Lightning. But I like it much better as a snub nose, and it's a lot of fun to get out there and shoot with. So those are the 44 caliber belt pistols. Now we're going to move up to the big iron. So now we're in the heavy artillery, and these are my two replica 3rd model Dragoons. This one I've had since 1990, and it's made by Army San Marcos, and it has had many rounds through it, so it's a little bit loose. I used to have this wacky leaf sight on it that I got rid of. So that's one of the oldest pistols still in the inventory. And then this one is a couple of years old. This one is my Uberti 3rd model Dragoon, and it is a good, solid, excellent shooter. And last but not least is my pair of Walker replicas. This one is also an Army San Marcos, and it also goes back to 1990. And it has had many rounds put down range through it. And this is a year or two old, my Uberti, just to make a pair. A great, solid, excellent revolver. So that's the heavy iron. And, you know, I know some of you are going to say, my God, that is a lot of Cap Ball Revolvers. Do you really need that many? Of course not. Now, my job as a magazine writer, I've tried to have one of just about everything. If for nothing else, than to have as a photo prop or a reference gun. Like when you're showing the evolution of revolvers during an article. But kind of the trick to it is, if you live a long time, you don't have to buy a lot of guns all at once. I've never sold a cap and ball gun. I've had some I've worn out completely, but I've never sold one. So buy them every now and then and hold on to them, and you know, eventually over the course of 40 years, 50 years almost I've been shooting them, that you end up with quite a few in the inventory. So that's a look at them. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for supporting me on Patreon.